Go Florida! Thank you to Congressman John Mica. I'm Mike Pence, along with my wife Karen Pence. A little more than 3 months ago, we accepted our party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I couldn't be more humbled to be with you today. I just told our friends in Overflow, we are 8 days away from a great victory all across the state of Florida and all across the United States of America. Now, I appreciate John Mica, so give John Mica another round of applause. He really is an extraordinary leader in Washington, D.C. John's known me for a long time. He knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order. And you know, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And until not too long ago, it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own. But now this party is coming together. This movement is coming together. Florida's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. You know, I truly do believe, having gotten to know this man, that Donald Trump literally embodies the American spirit. Strong, freedom-loving, independent, optimistic, and willing to fight hard every day for what he believes in and for what will make this country great again. You saw that fight on stage about a week and a half ago when he beat Hillary Clinton in that third debate, hands down, didn't you? Hands down. We had a little debate of our own, the vice presidential campaign. I want to apologize for being a few minutes late today. We stopped to grab some lunch after we landed, and Senator Tim Kaine called and interrupted me 10 times. You know, some people think we won that vice presidential debate, and I'm very humbled by that. But I got to tell you, from where I was sitting, Donald Trump won that debate. Donald Trump's leadership for America won that debate. And Donald Trump's vision to make America great again is going to win the debate all the way to the White House. But you know, it's not like it's exactly a fair fight out there. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, seriously. I mean, I get up every morning, I got to turn on the television with a stick. I don't know what's going to be there, you know? I mean, it's like the media gets up every day and does half of Hillary Clinton's work for her. It's like if the Gators had to play every game on the road against, you know, hometown crowds and hometown refs. I know they'd still be winning, right? But the amazing thing is it might be 2-on-1, but Donald Trump is still winning hearts and minds every day, and he's going to win all the way to the White House. Because what Donald Trump says to me more than anything else, he was up in Grand Rapids today with tens of thousands of people turned out. I'll tell you what, as he travels around this country, everywhere I go with him, he'll look at me when we pull up to these enormous crowds, and he'll poke me in the arm and say, remember, this is not about me. This is not about our team. It's not even about our party, he says. He says, this is a movement of the American people, and the American people have decided to make America great again. But I got to tell you, the media's kind of fun to watch. Remember about a week ago, they had this thing all rolled up, remember? Had Hillary measuring the curtains. She's out there. Remember that, John? She's out there. She's like naming cabinet members or something. That whole Hillary and her allies in the media were trying to roll up this thing in some air of inevitability. But don't be fooled, Florida. This race is on. And we're leading in the latest polls in Florida and leading in several national polls. This is a race to the finish. It's wheel to wheel, and we're going to sprint to the checkered flag. You know, I think what Americans, what's coming into focus for the American people is this isn't This isn't so much just a choice between two people, it's a choice between two futures. So let me tell you where I stand. I choose a stronger America. I choose a more prosperous America. I choose an America that stands without apology for the Constitution of the United States and the liberties enshrined there. So I choose to stand with Donald Trump and every American who knows we can make America great again. You know, the truth of the matter is that millions of Americans have just had enough. And we've especially had enough of the fast and loose ethics of the Clintons all these years. I mean, it really is amazing. An avalanche of documented evidence coming out that while Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State in charge of all of our foreign policy, she had this private foundation that took money from foreign governments. And then she had this private server in between those things, presumably just to keep what was going on out of public display. I mean, people have had enough of it. People are tired of it. And I have to tell you, it was after last summer when the FBI concluded that Hillary Clinton was extremely cautious with classified material on that private server, but they decided not to continue an investigation. You can imagine how we all felt last Friday when the director of the FBI announced there's emails that appear to be pertinent in their investigation, and the FBI has reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. Now, Donald Trump and I, we commend the FBI for reopening the case because no one is above the law in the United States of America. Confident that this investigation is going to be handled in a professional and a timely manner. But as this latest investigation and the facts around it come to light, let's talk about what we already know, okay? What's already in the public. Now stay with me on that. So while she was Secretary of State in charge of all of our foreign policy, she had a foundation taking money from foreign governments. You know, truth is a force of nature, and even though when it was discovered that she had a private server and she used high technology and hammers to try and keep it out of public view, these things have come out. I mean, it really is remarkable. I mean, you know, here's a couple of examples. When she was Secretary of State overseeing the rebuilding of the catastrophic earthquake in Haiti, loss of life, billions in property, we found out that aides to Hillary Clinton said that friends of the Clintons should be flagged for contracts for rebuilding Haiti. Everybody else just goes to the website. You know, and we found out from the FBI, they confirmed that State Department officials actually offered a quid pro quo to the FBI if they'd let them change the classified status on some of those emails that ended up on her private server. And then just about a week ago, we found out that top Clinton aides had what some in the media call this circle of enrichment, where they'd get large corporate donors to the Clinton Foundation, and then their aides would urge those very same companies to have personal income contracts for former President Clinton amounting to $66 million over the next 9 years. You know, for their decades of self-dealing, their conflicts of interest, their pay-to-play politics, and the politics of personal enrichment, we must decide here and now in the great state of Florida that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States of America. It's reason enough. It's reason enough. The American people are sick and tired of pay-to-play politics benefiting the favored few. And that's exactly the kind of politics that's going to come to a crashing halt the day that Donald Trump becomes President of the United States. His only special interest will be you, the American people, that he's going to fight for you every single day. And Donald Trump's got a plan. In the first 100 days, we're going to work with the newly re-elected majorities in the House and Senate with Congressman John Mica. We're going to pass ethics reform that gives us government as good as our people, and we're going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. Because the truth is, as we talk about all these swirling headlines and all the scandals and controversies that have always followed after the Clintons, the truth is, in the 8 days that remain before Election Day, men and women, I think we also need to talk about the big things. Because frankly, this election is about a lot bigger things than their small ethics. So let's talk about it. It's about our security. It's about prosperity. And it's about the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And I want to talk to you about those things. We've got to talk about them. You leave here today, you got to go find your neighbors and friends, and you got to talk about the big things, okay? Let's start about security. Despite traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, it is undeniable that the world is more dangerous today than the day that Hillary Clinton took over our foreign policy. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's brand of foreign policy has weakened America's place in the world. Our allies are less secure, our enemies are more emboldened. History teaches that weakness arouses evil. And when you look at the weak and feckless foreign policy of this administration, of leading from behind, of moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, and paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states, you see in high relief the kind of foreign policy that has emboldened our competitors and our adversaries. Let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price. You know, it was Hillary Clinton that actually initiated that disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. When I served in the Congress alongside your Congressman John Mica, we worked in a bipartisan way to put the most punitive sanctions in history on any country, economic sanctions on Iran. And here was the deal. Remember this, John? The sanctions would never come off until Iran permanently abandoned its nuclear ambitions. It was the policy of the United States of America that Iran would never be permitted to obtain a nuclear weapon. And yet this administration, in a deal that Hillary Clinton started, cut a deal that only delays the nuclear ambitions of the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. They got $150 billion, not even counting the ransom payments. And all we got was a promise of delay. It was Hillary Clinton who, as Secretary of State, failed to negotiate an agreement with the sovereign country of Iraq that would have allowed our soldiers to remain present after 2012 to secure what the American soldier had won in Iraq by the end of 2008. And they had won it. The American soldier won the peace and security and stability of the people of Iraq through great sacrifice. During my years in Congress, I traveled downrange to visit our soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. More importantly, Karen and I have stood at the graveside of fallen heroes in the state of Indiana. And when I think of the sacrifices that our soldiers made to achieve that victory in Iraq by the end of 2008, it breaks my heart to think of the way that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama squandered what the American soldier had won and created the very vacuum in which the monstrous terrorist organization ISIS was able to be conjured up out of the desert sands and overrun vast areas that the American soldier had already won. You know, we stand here today, on the other side of the world, there's more than 4,000 special forces in harm's way today outside Mosul, having to win back what had already been won, but for the failed leadership and bad judgment of this administration and its Secretary of State. You know, before I go one step further, I know in the room today there are men and women who wore the uniform in that conflict and in other conflicts in the course of their life. Would you all just mind, if you served in our armed forces, would you just put your hand in the air and let us thank you one more time? Thank you for your service. And it was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi and never sent help. Never sent help. 13 hours would pass before Americans were evacuated, but they never sent help. Remember that. After 4 Americans fell, she told the families of the fallen, as their flag-draped caskets arrived at Dover Air Force Base, that it was because of a filmmaker back here in the States. Even though the very night of the attack, she emailed her daughter and told her that it was a Al-Qaeda-style terrorist attack. It was the anniversary of 9/11. And then we all know the words she spoke before a Senate committee when she was confronted with those facts. She said of those 4 fallen Americans and the truth about the cause and what happened, she said, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" But let me tell you, as the proud father of a United States Marine, anybody who said that, anybody who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. You do not leave Americans in harm's way. And after they fall, you do not say, "What difference does it make?" We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. For the world to be safe, for our allies to be safe, for our most cherished ally, Israel, to be safe. America needs to be strong. And Donald Trump will lead on the world stage with American strength. We will rebuild our military. We will restore the arsenal of democracy. We will provide our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guard with the resources and training they need to accomplish their mission, and we will hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source so it can no longer threaten our people or inspire violence in the homeland. You know, that's probably why Donald Trump's been endorsed by more than 200 admirals and generals and more than 20 Medal of Honor winners to be the next president of the United States. You know, last Thursday night, we went a little long on a runway up in New York. And everybody's fine. But I have to tell you, it was... as our plane bumped off the edge of the runway and the mud splattered up on the windows, that plane hadn't even come to a stop before there were flashing lights all around the plane. We have the greatest first responders in the world in this country. They were all there to see if we were okay. But you know, this is a very challenging time for those that wear the uniform of law enforcement in America. It seems like every time tragedy happens, when a police officer is performing their duties, instead of demanding answers, transparency, and accountability, which the public is owed in such circumstances, there are too many in the national media and too many on the political left that are prepared to use a broad brush to demean all the men and women in law enforcement. Hillary Clinton actually spoke after one such incident of institutional racism in law enforcement. There are people who say that law enforcement is a force for division in our communities, in our nation. Well, Donald Trump and I know better. The men and women who serve in law enforcement are not a force for division, they're a force for good. They are the best of us, and they deserve the support of the rest of us. When Donald Trump becomes the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, you will have a president who will support law enforcement at every level with the resources and the training they need to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. And we will restore law and order to every city and every community in this country. Hillary Clinton wants open borders. At least that's what she said in Brazil. Donald Trump will end illegal immigration once and for all and remove criminal, illegal aliens from this country first. While Hillary Clinton is prepared to increase the Syrian refugee program from that terrorist-strewn country by 550%, Donald Trump and I will immediately suspend all immigration from countries compromised by terror. In a word, Donald Trump will always put the safety and security of the American people first. You know, before I go on, there's an awful lot of law enforcement personnel who are with us here today. Would you all much mind catching one of them by the eye? Just show them how much you really do appreciate the job that they do protecting our families. You know, I'm awful proud to say that the 330,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police have endorsed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. So it's about security abroad, it's about safety at home. But it's also about our prosperity. And we need to talk about it. I mean, the truth of the matter is, despite all the happy talk coming from the other side, right? I mean, we're in the midst of the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. We have the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s. 1 in 4 Americans in their prime earning years isn't even working. It breaks my heart to think of 1 in 5 households have no one under the same roof with a job. 1 in 5 are neighbors and friends. 45 million Americans on food stamps, 47 million living in poverty. Hillary Clinton's plan? More of the same. I mean, literally, more of the same. More taxes, more regulation, more of the war on American energy that's stifling American jobs, and more Obamacare. You know, they tell us this economy is the best that we can do, but I think Florida knows better. You got a great governor in Rick Scott. Can I just say that? I mean, Rick's a good friend of mine. As governor of Indiana, he's a fierce competitor. But let me tell you something. Rick will tell you what I'll tell you in Indiana. The only progress that you've made here in Florida, we've made in Indiana, has been in spite of what's coming out of Washington, D.C., not because of it. Let me tell you, they tell us this economy is the best that we can do, but y'all know it's nowhere near the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, we're going to put time-honored conservative principles into practice, and we're going to get all of America back to work and get this economy moving again. Because Donald Trump's got a plan. Got a plan. It sounds a lot like the plan Ronald Reagan put into effect. I mean, instead of Hillary Clinton's plan to raise taxes by $1 trillion, we're going to work with a newly re-elected majority in the House of Representatives when you send John Micah back, and with a newly re-elected majority in the Senate when you re-elect Senator Marco Rubio. And we're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We're going to get rid of death taxes once and for all. And we're going to lower business taxes in America so companies here in Florida can compete and grow jobs on the world stage with companies around the planet and not see them go overseas. And because regulation is really a form of taxation, you know, I mean, the government can either take your money out of your wallet as a tax or they can just tell you what to do with it. That's regulation. And we know that avalanche of acronyms coming out of Washington, D.C. is killing jobs, right? And killing small business. I mean, I'm talking about your EPA, I'm talking about your OSHA, I'm talking about your ABCDEFG. Am I right? So day one of the Trump-Pence administration, Donald's going to do what I did up in the Hoosier State. Moratorium on any new federal red tape. And we're going to repeal every single Obama executive order that's stifling jobs and growth in this economy. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, or shall I say negotiator in chief, we're going to have trade. We're going to have free trade. We're going to have exports and imports. But when we renegotiate NAFTA, when we roll our sleeves up and do better deals, trade is going to mean American jobs first again. It's going to support growth in the American economy. And we're going to hold our trading partners accountable to the promises that they make to the people who have the strongest economy on earth. And lastly, John Michael and I fought this fight. We have the scars to prove it, don't we? We tried to keep that Affordable Care Act off your backs. But that was back in the day when Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the Congress. Remember the promises? Remember the promises? I mean, literally, remember, if you like your doctor, you can keep them. Not true. If you like your health insurance, you can keep it. Not true. Your health insurance costs are going to go down. Not true. Okay? I'll never forget the day. Do you remember that day on the House floor, John, when Nancy Pelosi went down and get ready for the final vote on Obamacare? And Nancy Pelosi said, "We got to pass this bill so we can find out what's in it." That's a quote. Well, we found out 1 week ago today, the Obama administration announced that the average premium on the average policy under Obamacare is going to go up 25% next year. Arizona's looking at 116% increase next year. I mean, men and women, it's incredible. I mean, we have a former president, the spouse of our opponent, who said, "Costs are going up, coverage is going down. It's the craziest thing in the world." I mean, I guess with the Clintons, even sometimes truth happens. But don't be deceived by Bill Clinton's newfound skepticism. Because earlier this year, Hillary Clinton made it clear. She said, but quote, before they called it Obamacare, they called it Hillary Care. And Hillary Clinton's got a plan. She gave one of those speeches that she didn't want to come out up in Canada, and she said she wanted a healthcare system just like Canada. There's a term for that up there. It's called socialized medicine. My favorite quote, though, came from President Obama. I don't know if you heard about this. He was down in Florida about a week ago, and he was celebrating the 3rd anniversary of the rollout of Obamacare. He was. And he actually compared Obamacare to the Samsung Galaxy 7 phones that spontaneously burst into flames. He did. I'm not making this up. He said, here's what the president said. Do you hear about this? Here's what the president said. Quote, when one of these companies comes out with a new smartphone and it has a few bugs, what do? They fix it. They upgrade it. Unless it catches fire, then they pull it off the market. Well, what a coincidence, Mr. President, because that's exactly what we're going to do with Obamacare. We're going to pull it off the market so it stops burning up our wallets. We're going to work with this newly re-elected Congress, and we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And we're going to replace it not with Hillary Clinton's Canadian-style health care. She wants to put single payer into the middle of Obamacare and go from bad to worse. Here's an idea. How about you pass health care reform that respects the doctor-patient relationship, that gives consumers more choices, allows the American people to buy health insurance the way we buy life insurance and the way we buy car insurance across state lines, will free up the free market, and that's how we'll drive down the cost of health insurance and health care. That's the American way. So it's about security at home and abroad, and it's about prosperity. And the choice could not be more clear. But given the significance of this last point, I hope you talk to people about this last one. We're going to elect a president to serve for 4 years. 8. A 4-year term. But that president, the next president's probably going to set the course and direction of the Supreme Court of the United States for the next 40. And you better think long and hard about that. And if you cherish our Constitution, if you cherish limited government, the principles that are enshrined there, the liberties that are enshrined there, you better think long and hard about that. I mean, elect Hillary Clinton president of the United States. You heard her in that debate the other night. She thinks the people appointed to the court should represent a particular viewpoint. Elect Hillary Clinton as President of the United States, and you better get used to more unelected judges using unaccountable power to basically legislate from the bench. But elect Donald Trump as President of the United States. And you'll see men and women appointed to the highest court in the land and all of our federal courts who will strictly construe the Constitution of the United States of America and uphold our liberties enshrined there. So I will say to you, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment, for the sake of all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Bill of Rights, Florida, we must ensure that the next president to make appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States is President Donald Trump. It's that important. It's that important. So I have to tell you, Karen and I, we're just so moved that you're here. I know I'm not exactly the main event, so thank you for coming out. Thank you for being here. I'm very humbled by it. Very humbled. But I got a couple of asks for you. I got a couple of asks for you. No, thank you. I got a couple of requests for you. Number one, I got 3 requests, and I'm going to let you go and go trick or treat or something. I mean, Number one, 8 days left. So I'm asking you, all of you gathered here today, go vote. Already have. I mean, vote. And vote early, for heaven's sakes. Early voting is underway here in Florida. And I checked. You can go to the Maitland Community Park, 1400 Mayo Avenue, Maitland, Florida. Early voting center is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it's only 1.8 miles from right here. Go. Go vote and get it done. I mean, the truth of the matter is that this is America's turn to speak out. We hear from the pundits. We hear from the experts. We get polls every 17 seconds. That's your turn. Don't ever doubt for a second this election is in the hands of the American people. So go vote, bring a friend, get it done, and get it done early. That's number one. Number two, once you take care of number one, number two is go tell somebody. Okay? I mean, I started out today telling you that this is, it's like been 2-on-1 out there since this thing started. But it's amazing to see the momentum in this movement, and I truly do believe it's because the American people are talking to each other. Over backyard fences at places of worship and work. And they're talking about the stakes of this election. So I want you to leave here today and just go find a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, and just tell them, hey, I went down. Mike told me to go down to the Maitland Community Center. I did that. I voted. Now I want to tell you why I voted. Tell you what it's about, okay? Because I honestly think this election is not so much even a choice between left and right or a choice between Republican and Democrat. I think it's like Ronald Reagan said in 1964. This is a choice between up and down. I mean, when you're talking to your neighbors and friends, here's how I'd put it, is this is a choice between whether we're going to continue to go down the hill to a weaker America on the world stage, a weaker American military, walking farther away from our most cherished allies, emboldening our adversaries and competitors, stifling the American economy under a crushing weight of more regulation, more taxation, more Obamacare, walking farther and farther away from our most cherished constitutional ideals, or whether, Florida, we are going to stop, plant our feet, turn around, and march back up the hill to a stronger America at home and abroad, to a stronger America on the world stage, a more prosperous America for our children and grandchildren, and an America that cherishes and upholds our highest constitutional ideals. That's the choice. That's it. It's up and down. And when you're talking to your neighbors and friends, there's one group I'd love you to talk to particularly in this close election. And that is, it's remarkable as I travel around the country. Donald Trump's message has won over many independents across this country. People that are tired of gridlock in Washington, D.C., not getting anything done. He's won over many Democrats across this country who are tired of liberal policies flowing out of our nation's capital and trade deals that ship jobs overseas. But I think now it's time for all of us to reach out to all of our Republican friends and say with one voice, it's time to come home. It's time for Republican voters to come home. Come home and elect the Trump-Pence team to the White House. Come home and re-elect Senator Marco Rubio to a Republican majority in the United States Senate. Come home and re-elect Congressman John Mica to a Republican majority. And come home to ensure that Hillary Clinton is never elected president of the United States of America. It's time to come home. And lastly, let me say this. If you're taking notes, vote early, bring a friend, go tell somebody, especially some of our closest friends. And lastly, have faith. All right? I mean, first have faith in the people of Florida. Have faith in the American people. This is the clearest election choice that I think I'll ever see in my lifetime. I mean, Americans can elect a leader who literally personifies the failed status quo in Washington, D.C. Or we can choose a leader who will stand for freedom, stand with our military, uphold law and order, revive the American economy, and stand without apology on our Constitution. And I believe with all of my heart that every time we do our part and give the American people a choice between strength and freedom and our highest ideals, the American people always choose freedom. They always choose strength, and they always choose our highest ideals. So be confident as you talk to your neighbors and friends, and have faith. Have faith in the American people. And lastly, I'd say, if you're of a mind, have that other kind of faith and exercise it in the next 8 days. If you're inclined to do like the Pences do from time to time, to bow the head and bend the knee, it'd be a good 8 days to do it. Really would. And can I say, I'm here championing the team, championing the cause, because we got to turn this country around. But on this one, I think what Abraham Lincoln said was apt. He was asked if he thought God was on his side, and he said, I rather concern myself with whether we're on God's side than if God is on ours. So pray for our country. Just pray for America, because it matters. Pray for our country, and when you pray in these times of division, of new and unknowable threats around the world, of frustrations and heartbreak and disappointment and division here at home, pray with confidence. Because I believe what's been true for millennia is still true today. What's been true for generations of Americans in much more challenging times than this is still true today. That if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll do like he's always done. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal this land. This one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So men and women of Florida, I've got miles to go before I sleep, as the poet said. And you could, Mrs. Pence has got that pumpkin top on today. You could give her a big round of applause. She has traveled so many miles in this cause. Before I go, I just want to encourage you. As you put into action, hopefully, everything I just encourage you to do, I'll make you a promise. In the days that remain of this campaign, I want you to know this. That man is ready. This team is ready. This movement is obviously ready. If you go out and make sure that Florida is ready, we will elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America, and we will make America great again. Let's go to work, everybody. 8 days to victory. Thank you very much, and God bless you.